here with Rob Seale, one of the state of Texas's top attorneys responsible for MUDs, municipal urban districts. He is an interesting attorney because to be a lawyer and to be able to stand on a piece of property and see the transformation into a community where people can live and enjoy a great time in terms of a great lifestyle, be part of Houston, you are the lawyer that makes all these things happen. So thank you for being here on the show.
It's my pleasure. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself. I know that you went to NYU, you have a degree in law from Montana University, and how long have you been practicing law in the state of Texas?
In the state of Texas, I came back for good in 2013, so a little over 11 years ago. I grew up in Texas, in Houston, and lived all over the country for several years before coming back a little over a decade ago now.
Right, so municipal urban districts, they are something that is foreign to most people. They don't understand what it is, and it's a pretty unique type of mechanism, legal mechanism that we have here in the state of Texas that allows for the development of master plan communities.
MUD specifically and water districts in general are essentially governmental entities that are creatures of Texas state law that allow for a certain type of financing mechanism to occur whereby a private developer essentially makes very, very large capital expenditures to put all of the public infrastructure in to serve the development that is underway, that is their project. And in turn, through the MUD, bonds can be issued to reimburse the developer for those public infrastructure costs, or another way to say it is to purchase the public infrastructure that the developer has put in on the district's behalf from the front end.
So you're essentially saying a developer will come out, let's say he buys a piece of property, then the developer needs to find the funding to put in the water, sewer, utilities, all the infrastructure in order to create this community. But then once the homes are built, eventually the developer gets the money back through this district, the MUD?
That is exactly correct. I couldn't state it any more succinctly or clearly than that. And at the end of the day, that core infrastructure, our water facilities, sanitary sewer, drainage, roads, and parks, the developer can count on this system to get those costs reimbursed, and thus obviously turn around, put those reimbursements into their pro formas, and then effectively sell either developed lots or completed homes to the home builders or end users at a lower price. It's really the mechanism by which Texas in general and the Houston area in particular has over time been such a relatively affordable place to live.
Right, it's very efficient because eventually what ends up happening is through these bonds, the homeowners pay back these infrastructure costs, so that makes it more affordable for a developer to come out and buy land and develop property.
Correct. So much so that over time it is actually very difficult, certainly in Southeast Texas any longer, to be competitive, certainly in the single-family residential market, without the water district financing mechanism behind it. Because in all likelihood, the guy right down the street is using a water district, and if you're not, you are just by definition and automatically from the front end at a competitive disadvantage.
In other places, even specifically other countries, you would see that the municipality would come out and put its own money and invest in building this infrastructure, and it wouldn't be a private developer. How did it end up happening here in Texas that there's this kind of marriage between a private developer putting out its own capital? When did this all start, and who came up with these ideas?
Well, it really goes back roughly to the 1960s when Houston was experiencing extraordinary growth. There was an oil boom. NASA had come into play. Lots and lots of people moving to Houston, and the city of Houston couldn't keep up with building the infrastructure fast enough to house these folks who were coming in great numbers. With very few exceptions, we're very fortunate that influx has continued over time. But the beauty of it is, and you're right, the way most cities grow is by extending its own infrastructure at its own cost, perhaps not very efficiently, and certainly not in a market responsive, timely manner, usually. The beauty of this is when a MUD is created over a specific piece of property, and it is going to be the financing vehicle for that infrastructure, the city's existing taxpayers are not burdened by that new development as they would be if the city were extending its own utilities. And so we like to say around here, because we believe it's true, that the growth really pays for itself. It is a self-sustaining, self-constructed model that is only paid for at the end of the day by the end users.
Right, so in other states, when people are living in a city and they're upset that the city is growing because they think their taxes are going to go up, here we've more or less resolved that situation. It doesn't exist. People are cognizant of the fact that this MUD will be in place. The MUD is going to pay for the infrastructure. The MUD is going to reimburse the private developer. And anybody living in town who's worried about people moving in and their costs going up and being hamstrung by high taxes is more or less relaxed. You don't have that kind of anxiety.
There is no effect of a new development on existing residents' tax bill costs, et cetera. In effect, a water district is created, and the new residents that are coming into that district have agreed to tax themselves for that new development and those amenities that are being constructed on their behalf.
Right.
But no effect on no effect on their neighbors down the road who've been there for 10 or 15 years.
Right, so now we know what a MUD is. Basically, it's a mechanism for a private developer to get reimbursed for its infrastructure costs. The homeowners end up paying it. It's on their tax bill. And I want to talk a little bit about how secure these payments are, because they're very secure, and normally banks don't necessarily understand how secure the payments can be coming from these MUDs and how the bonds operate. Can you talk a little bit about the safetiness in terms
Sure.
of the security of the stream of income that comes from those reimbursements?
Certainly. The pace and manner of development obviously comes through the issuance of the MUD bonds themselves. The security for those bonds is basically an unlimited tax. We refer to it as an unlimited tax in Texas. That is, the other way to say it is a general obligation bond. There is no higher security for a bond in the United States than a general obligation tax. So if a district at a given level of value and a given amount of bonds outstanding, the district not only is able to, but is required by law to levy a tax sufficient to pay principal and interest on those bonds as it comes due. In addition to that fundamental security behind the bonds, we have a regulatory scheme in Texas that has been implemented by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality that it involves certain financial feasibility rules. And so while that security is there behind the bonds itself, an additional layer of regulatory security exists because those TCEQ rules don't allow a water district to over-lever itself under any circumstance. And so you have both the actual security for the bonds and leverage limitations that really are just really so rock solid that we haven't had any defaults in decades on these bonds.
Right, so decades of no defaults, and the institutional investors that are buying these bonds, they see this as a high quality investment that is extremely safe.
They apparently they must
Yes, because the
because
interest rates are fairly low.
interest rates are fairly low. The vast majority of Texas MUD bonds are sold as exempt bonds. The interest on them is exempt from United States federal income taxation. That obviously comes with a lower interest rate comes with that vis-a-vis taxable bonds. But there is a very, very robust market for this paper. Certainly high net worth individuals have become very familiar, principally resident in Texas, have become very, very familiar with this market. They have a great appetite for them. Once bonds get rated and are more broadly available, you see larger institutional buyers come in, and I don't know what to, I can't speak for them, but obviously the market kind of speaks for itself. In this system now been in place over 50 years. Last
50
year,
years.
50 years,
Right.
getting closer to 60 now, to be honest. But in the last year alone, Texas Water District bonds over $3 billion with a B in issuance in the last year alone, there's no reason to think that won't be repeated this year.
Well, that's great news because that's going to continue to allow the growth to move forward in Houston. So, as a developer, you're counting on this stream of income coming from the MUDs. What's a typical time frame that a developer could expect to, when do they actually get the money back for the infrastructure?
It all depends on the pace of development. And so one of the beauties of Texas's system and the TCEQ regime is that it is purely a performance-based model. And so the faster a developer puts taxable value on the ground, the faster we can issue bonds to reimburse for that infrastructure. And so the typical rule, very ballpark rule, there are exceptions to this, is we have basically a 10% leverage rule. So for every 10 million US dollars in taxable value put on the ground, we can issue $1 million in debt. Some cost of issuance to that, obviously, but it's all about pace. If a developer takes 20 years to build the project out, it's going to be 21 years roughly,
right,
to get those to get all those infrastructure costs back. If the developer takes 5 years to build a project out, probably just about 6 years to get all that money back. There's usually, roughly speaking, about a year lag at full development. Once that value is there, we can go issue the final bonds based on the value that's on the ground and get them reimbursed.
So the sooner that you can build the infrastructure, sell the lots to the home builders build the homes, that's the taxable value, right?
That's the taxable value, is vertical development.
Vertical development. So we want to see homes built and purchased and occupied, people living in them.
Right.
As soon as that happens, there's an opportunity for the developer to get their own money back. And what you're saying is, hey, if there are $10 million in homes that are built, which could be 30, 40 homes,
right,
maybe 50 homes if they're very affordable,
right,
as soon as those homes are built, then the MUD can issue bonds of about $1 million for $10 million in value,
right,
and the developer gets that back to his pocket to pay for the infrastructure.
Right. Right. That's correct. Okay. It's not an immediate process. There's a regulatory regime that we have to go through. But yes, once that value is marked by the appraisal district, we can start the bond issuance process. Depending on the facilities for which we're reimbursing, that process can take anywhere from 3 to about 6 months. So there is a little bit of a delay in that sense. It's not super immediate, but yes, once that taxable value hits the tax roll, the process starts immediately.
And this process has been around for, you said, over 50 years?
It really is. It's getting closer to 60 years now. The TCEQ regime that has been laid over the top of it, that really has put a finer point on everything, is now getting close to 30 years old. So, but the market's been around for over half a century. Yes.
Right. So I want to talk about the safetiness or the perceived safetiness of buying these bonds as investments, because you have institutional investors, not mom and pops, the smartest people on Wall Street are buying these bonds. So what is the perception? Are these relatively safe? Because what are they backed by?
Well, they must be safe, right? Or the market wouldn't be so robust for them. And I don't pretend to be as smart as Wall Street is, but the appetite for this paper is very, very strong. Typically on the front end, they are pre-rating. They're marketed largely to high net worth individuals who know the market well and have gotten used to it over the decades. Once bonds get rated, they are typically you typically see larger institutional buyers come in and either holding or remarketing this paper to individuals. The couple of reasons for the security. One is almost without exception, Texas MUD bonds are what we refer to as unlimited tax bonds, meaning they are backed by the governmental entity, the MUD's ability to levy an unlimited tax to pay principal and interest on the bonds. That is the highest pledge that we can make in the United States. If
real property that is securing this.
The value of the real property,
right.
Exactly, and the tax on that value. There's no higher pledge. We'd do better if we could, but we can't. And so that unlimited tax pledge, if you talk to a water district banker, they would say that's as good as it gets. In addition to the pure security for the bond, the regulatory regime that has been laid over the top of Texas water districts via the TCEQ financial feasibility rules effectively prevent any individual district from ever over levying. And so we talked about that general 10-to-1 rule. Once an investment grade rating comes around, you're limited by what the market will bear, 12, maybe 13%. But at the end of the day, it is that prevention against over leverage at the district level and that incredible tax-backed pledge that is what makes these bonds so secure. And apparently, and again, the proof is in the market, is what has made the market so robust.
So even there's been decades of these bonds being issued. There's never been a default in decades. Even during the last big recession here in Texas where the real estate market fell out, there still were no defaults. So as a developer, if you're out there buying land and you're developing a community and you're counting on the stream of income coming from the mud, you can pretty much count on it. It's a done deal if you put the value on the ground.
Pretty much. I mean, the last time there was a default in this market was in the wake of the late '80s oil crash, and there were some defaults at that time. What came out of that process was the TCEQ regime that we live with now. And since that has been put in place, which is now close to 30 years old, there have effectively been zero defaults in this marketplace. And so the knowledge that market for these bonds is so robust and that those bonds will be sold gives the developer a certain level of certainty that if I perform, the market is there for these bonds and I'm going to get reimbursed. And so there's a level of certainty that is built in to this regime that if you talk to Texas developers who are in this space, I think what they would tell you is, I wouldn't do a deal without a water district because I can put it into my pro forma and feel very, very solid about what's coming back.
So as a developer, if you form a MUD, you put the contracts in place, you feel very certain and secure that the stream of income will come back to reimburse you for all this infrastructure costs.
That's exactly right. The whole point of this construct is giving the developer certainty that if I go do what I'm supposed to do, follow the rules, put enough value on the ground such that the district can issue bonds, I am going to get those reimbursements back. As a result, they can turn around, build that into their pricing to home builders. Home builders can build it into their pricing to the end users. And as a result, Texas has been and continues to be, and hopefully will be into the future, a relatively very affordable place to live, largely because of this regime.
We have in the state of Texas some of the largest single-family master plan community markets in the country. People don't realize that the city of Houston, or the Houston MSA, there are more than 40,000 new homes built in Houston. That's about the same as the entire state of California, just in the Houston MSA. This policy that we have with the MUDs, this mechanism that's in place, does it benefit other cities besides Houston as much? What cities really benefit from using these MUDs besides Houston?
Well, it's really the entire southeast region as a general matter, and Houston has grown so much now that we're certainly, and have long been, out in other jurisdictions. Sugar Land in Fort Bend County is an excellent example. They're now used really all over the state. They're used in Central Texas in the Austin area. Also now, to a certain extent, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But the true benefit of them is in part what you said. Yes, can it benefit cities? But the real benefit goes back to the numbers that you just spoke of. The fact of the matter is that with the private capital that is put into these deals, Texas, because of this model, can service its market in a way and do so more efficiently, more quickly, more nimbly, and at the end of the day, more economically than you can in other places. The fact that this construct and this program is in place allows a developer to go out and say, okay, there's a huge demand for X, Y, or Z in this market. I am going to go do this project with the knowledge that if I perform, I'm going to get this infrastructure cost back. That certainty and that ability to use private capital and private professionals to manage this rather than relying on a big, huge governmental being to try to pull it off that quickly, that efficiently. It is that flexibility and sort of nimbleness that allows Texas to sort of keep, as best we can, keep up with the demand for housing. Because as long as people are going to keep moving here, and we're thrilled that they are, we have to find places for these folks to live.
And affordable places.
Affordable, and if we don't build any new homes, the price is going to go through the roof. I mean, this is what happens.
It's important for the economy.
It's very important for the economy. At the end of the day, people come in, and yes, there are wonderful high-paying jobs in medicine and oil and gas and everything. However, if you're going to have a proper society, you need all of the people and the places that come with that. You need the teachers, you need the firefighters, you need everyone. Folks need a place to live. Some people want to live closer to the city. Some people want to live in the suburbs. Some people want a large house. Some people want a small house. Some people want something in between. School districts, all of this matters. And it is this regime that allows the developer, at the end of the day, to make the best business decision as far as where to place a product, how to place it, how much, so that they can meet the demands of the market without worrying about too much coming in over the top of them and saying, here's what you're going to do here, whether there's really a market for that or not, if that makes sense.
Understood. One last thing I'd like to talk about is timing.
Mm-hmm.
A developer gets their development agreement, they form the MUD, they build the infrastructure, they take the first year to put the water, sewer, utilities into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Homes start popping out of the property after a year. Within 2 years, you have $10 million of homes on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
How soon does the developer get the reimbursement? Is it done on a quarterly basis, or how long does it take for them to get their first payments?
It's typically analyzed about annually. Sometimes there's an interim, say every 6 months we'll go to the appraisal district and ask for an estimate of value. Values get certified as of January 1 each year, and that typically happens in the mid to late summer. So, and value is always marked as of January 1 in Texas as of each year. So if you come around about 6 months, the appraisal district says, here's what the value was on January 1. You can at that time go for an estimate, particularly if the pace of development is very, very high. You might say, well, I've put significantly more value on the ground in the last 6 months. Let's go get an estimate. Once you have a marker on the value, whether certified or estimated, and depending upon the type of facilities we're financing, you're looking at usually about a 3 to 6 month process to where the bonds are approved, issued, closed, and reimbursement goes out the door. So roughly, depending on where you've marked your value, call it 6 months afterwards.
Right, so this is a reliable process with a timing that you can put in your pro forma, and you can say, I'm fairly certain it's going to come in this month, in this amount, and the developer can rely on that. And then when they go to an institution or an investor and say, hey, I've got this project, I know I'm going to get reimbursed in October of 2026 for this amount, they'll say, how do you know that? Say, we know how much is going to be on the ground, what the value is. We have the builders building the homes. We can see them coming up out of the ground. And we know how many homes will be there. We know what we're going to value them and how they'll get certified, and the money's going to come.
Right. That's well described, and I think that is how most developers in this space who are borrowing, say from a bank for a development loan, that's exactly how it's pro forma'd out. And really, once a deal gets up and running, and assuming the pace of development keeps going with relative regularity, we're in the market just about annually. It starts to become fairly consistent. In other words, values get certified here. We start to put the bond issue together. and we're trying to get folks paid. Again, assuming the value's coming online, we're trying to get folks paid generally about the same time on an annual basis until
It's like it becomes a machine. It just
Pretty
it's
much.
a process. It continues on and on and on.
Pretty much. And so since the value certification process is an annual process, what follows is that the bond issuance process is roughly an annual process. Now, certain deals can go very, very fast. When they do, we might issue twice a year. Again, it's all about pace. But in a typical deal in the development cycle, when things are going on, we're trying to issue really roughly on an annual basis.
Okay, well, thank you. Today we learned so much about MUDs. Thanks for explaining how they work, how safe they are for the investors, how reliable they are for the developers, how they're extremely efficient for growth of new master plan communities, and the timing, which is very reliable for developers. So it's an interesting mechanism, and thanks for sharing all your thoughts.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it. Appreciate it.